No, we're doing it. Figure it out. I feel like this is something. Oh, so keep saying. We're small, guys. I can't wait till I finish this box today and say, let's kick this pig. Did you do your DNA analysis for?
I was in the shower this morning and I realized for it.
Yeah.
That's so bad, dude.
I was just like dragging myself out of it. I was like, that's
Yeah, that's not a good. And I haven't even read the chapters.
I'm probably just feel like I finished storm spread for you for tomorrow night, so I'm like screwed today.
Just like, and I still gotta go to work after this. I don't finish straight.
What? Oh, I was trying to cook for you all day. Oh. Great.
After this thing, I'm gonna go stream and start working on that.
She go back a day?
I think she's not my sister-in-law to baby shower. I like when
Janice is, that is gonna take a minute.
Hours.
We would not start too late because it's a lot. What's your DNA thing for?
Pastoral counseling.
Pastoral counseling, thank you. Can't thank you.
It would be good when you leave teaching in town.
Yeah.
I took pastoral counseling with, Lionel Bundy, the goat.
Bundy.
I love
her
her.
class with him.
That class was so small. We had, because it was like 3 classes in one, but it was like,
Yeah.
it was Brandon Ward was in there, Atlanta Hercules, Maya Atterbury.
Oh, that was before Elena switched majors, wasn't it?
What she's supposed to do.
Is she missions now?
No, she's
Agriculture.
no,
No, she's human services.
yeah. I think she used to be like children's ministry or something like that.
Oh.
That class was fun.
I liked it.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty fun.
All right, welcome back. Sorry it took me a minute to get back. Let's jump in. We need to talk for just a little bit about preaching from the Old Testament prophets so that we can make a transition sometime at or prior to, hopefully, lunchtime toward some of these New Testament gospel categories. So, preaching from the prophets. Obviously, you've got the so-called major and so-called minor prophets. 12 of the latter, 5 of the former that come into play. Each presents its own types of challenges. One of the things with the major prophets that's hard is just the sheer scope of the material. And you talk about preaching a series of sermons from Philippians, that's one thing. You talk about preaching through Ezekiel, that's another thing entirely. Well, in multiple ways, it's another thing entirely. Jeremiah, Isaiah, there's just a lot of material there. And so that's challenging because, in our first session together, I talk about not always preaching the Old Testament in an overview, big picture kind of way, sometimes doing more detailed work as well. But then, of course, that gets really hard. But if you're going to do detailed exposition all the way through Isaiah, you're going to be there a long time. And again, a part of the issue is the opportunity cost. Every time you're doing one thing, you're missing the opportunity to do everything else. So it's really difficult when you can't get through Isaiah going one chapter at a time in a year. So again, you've got a lot of balancing to do in relationship to how you're just going to weigh different priorities and such. But I think over time in our preaching and teaching, there's some opportunities to at least do a better job of balancing than we've typically done in the past. So to take Isaiah as an example, what sections of Isaiah have you heard preach?
The messianic stuff.
Yeah, and especially chapter 2, verse 13 through chapter 53, verse 12. Well, let's just be honest here. Even within the messianic chunks, in Isaiah, what you've really heard is one section of that,
Yeah.
far more than even the others that are available.
Yeah.
So,
We also hear Isaiah from the like Gospels where they reference it. Like people preach the Gospel
Sure.
like references, and then they go back to Isaiah. So it's like this is what it is now, like how it's referenced and like what it means, and then this is what the original context was. So it's like you never hear just Isaiah.
yes.
You get that like that butt end of like
Yeah.
this is where it's coming from.
And as we talked about earlier, I mean, when an Old Testament passage is cited in the New Testament and the sermons from the New Testament, I don't mind that. But it's unfortunate that that the relationship has never developed the opposite direction. And with, a little more accent on the Old Testament text then being fulfilled by the New Testament, rather than the starting with the New Testament always and saying, here's where it came from. Yeah, again, because of the amount of emphasis that's given. And so in reality, a lot of times, people don't really actually understand the Old Testament context very well, because it's underdeveloped. Which matters